Alright, how's everybody doing today? I'm back again with another video for you guys and gals. And today what I have for everyone is my versus/comparison video between the Moto X Pure Edition and the LG Stylo 3. Now real quick before we jump in, I'm trying to make this video as quick as possible, so I probably won't cover everything in this versus/comparison video. If you want a more in-depth look at either of these devices, please be sure to check out my full reviews of either of these devices, which will be linked down below in the video description. That being said, let's get into this video. Jumping right into it, the first thing I want to talk about with you guys and gals is the overall build quality and design between these two devices. Now let's start off with the Moto X Pure Edition. Now, from a build quality standpoint, I feel as though Motorola did a great job with this one. There's no rattling or creaking of any kind, and all of your buttons give you a nice tactile and clicky feedback, and it's a really good build quality on this one. And that's saying something, considering that this device, well, I've owned this device for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in February, and it still performs extremely well, and everything is very tactile and clicky. So good job, Motorola, when it comes to the build quality. Now, from a design standpoint, you're gonna hear more of the same. I really like the design on this. I'm really a big fan of the functional and clean approach, and I feel that's what Motorola delivered in spades with the design of this device. Everything is where it needs to be, and it feels very solid and nice in the hands. Has a really nice weight to it. It's light but not too light, and you still have a nice weight as well. So it's really solid build quality and design. So again, kudos Motorola for this device that you made here. I think this came out in 2015. So at the end of this year, it'll be 3 years old. Don't quote me on that. And still a very good design device and built device as well. So moving on, when we talk about the build quality and design of the LG Stylo 3, you're going to hear more of the same. From a build quality standpoint, again, this one was built extremely well. There's no rattling or creaking of any kind, and all of my buttons give me a nice reassuring and tactile feedback to them. So from a design standpoint, I feel like LG did a really good job on this one. From a build quality standpoint, I feel like LG did a really good job on this one. And again, that goes over into design as well. I really like the design of this device. It feels very solid in the hand, and it has a nice weight to it. It's heavy, but not too heavy. Really nice weight. So in terms of the build quality and design of the LG Stylo 3, I think LG did a good job with this one. Now, talking about who wins in the build quality and design department, this is where I'd have to say, although the build quality and designs for both of these devices is really good, in my opinion, I'm more inclined to go with the build quality and design of the Moto X Pure Edition. I just like the extra grip that it gives you, and again, it feels really solid in the hands. But that does not take anything away from the overall build quality and design of the LG Stylo 3. Okay? That's just personal preference. Really, if I could take my preferences out of it, I would call them a tie, but I prefer the build quality and design on the Moto X Pure Edition. That's my baby. Anyways, keeping it moving. Up next now, let's talk about the displays on both of these devices. Let's start out with the Stylo 3. And again, I'm not going to go into everything on the displays, but if you want a more in-depth look on the displays on these devices, please check out my full reviews of each of these devices, which will be linked down below. So, from a display standpoint, up front, dead center here, you have a 5.7-inch 720p display. And it's an IPS LCD display, and I believe it has a screen density of 2 57. But putting all the numbers aside, in day-to-day usage, I would have to say that this is a really, really good display. Taking it outdoors, I've had no issue seeing it outdoors. And again, in day-to-day usage, it's been really, really good. So I feel like LG made a really, really good display when they put this device together. So kudos, LG. Now, talking about the display on the Moto X Pure Edition, up front, dead center here, you have a 5.7-inch Quad HD display, and I think it has a screen density of 515, I want to say. It's been a while since I looked at the stats on this one. I can't remember everything off the top of my head, so don't quote me on that. But putting all the numbers aside, again, from a daily usage standpoint, I would have to say that this is a really, really good display. Taking it outdoors, it's a really, really solid display, and I've had no issues with it. I think the only issue that I've had with the display is that over time, it's not aging well. So if I put on an all black background, you're going to be able to see there are some dead pixels on this display. But using it in daily usage, you don't really notice that. But if I put the right background on, you'll see it. But putting that aside, from a daily usage standpoint, this is a really, really solid display. And I've had no issues with it. So, good job, Motorola. Good job. Now, you guys are probably wondering, in terms of displays, which one would I go with? And at least in my opinion, I'd have to call it a tie. And here's why. I'm not a big fan of Quad HD, 1080p, 4K. A good display, in my opinion, is a good display. It does not matter what resolution the display is. Your resolution is personal preference. If a good display is a good display, I'm gonna tell you it's a good display. And both of the displays on these devices are really, really good. So in terms of displays, I'm gonna have to call it a tie, but to each his own. If you guys think the Quad HD display on the Moto X Pure Edition looks better than the HD display on the Stylo 3, that's up to y'all. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions and their own preferences. But at least to me, I'm gonna call it a tie. All right. Now let's keep it moving and let's talk about the hardware and the software in these devices. Let's start off with the LG Stylo 3. Okay. Now, hardware wise for the Stylo 3, this guy has 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of onboard storage. It has a 3200 milliamp hour battery. It has a 13 megapixel camera on the back, capable of 1080p video recording and 720p video recording. It has a power button, which also doubles as a fingerprint sensor, and LED flash. Also, more hardware up front here. It has a 5 megapixel camera capable of recording videos at the same resolution as the rear. So that's 1080p and 720p. Okay? So just wanted to throw that one out there. Now, moving on. More hardware on this guy. Internally, it has a Snapdragon 425 processor in it. And it has an Adreno 308 GPU. Okay, so there's that. Okay, and moving on to the software, because that pretty much does it for the hardware. Software wise, this guy is running LG Skin on top of Android 7.0 Nougat. And you know, nowadays, these software tweaks have become more personal preference. So I'm beginning to look at these things in terms of overall fluidity and performance. And performance-wise, when we talk about the software, I found that on the Stylo 3, it's been an overall fluid and snappy experience, and I've had no issues except for the occasional app slowdown with a bunch of apps open in the background. So in terms of the hardware and software for the Stylo 3, I think LG did a really good job on this one. All right. Now, jumping into the Moto X Pure Edition, hardware wise, in hardware in here, we got a Snapdragon 808 processor. I think that's a hexa-core processor, six cores. And we have 3 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage. Again, with micro SD card expansion, we got a 3000 milliamp hour battery in this guy. We got a 21 megapixel camera on the rear with LED flash, which is capable of recording 4K video, 720p video, 1080p video, and 720p slow motion on the front and the rear. Okay? Other things up front here, we have a 5 megapixel camera, again with LED flash, and this one is capable of recording 720p video and 1080p video and 720p slow motion as well. So that pretty much does it for the hardware. And then you got your front facing speakers up front here and that 5.7 inch quad HD display. Now, software wise, this guy is running Android 7.0 Nougat, and it's pretty much a stock affair of Android. So you can see I really like Motorola's approach to Android. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And really, they only throw in a few custom features that they think that you're going to use. So from a software performance standpoint, I'd have to say that from a day-to-day usage standpoint, talking about the software, it is a very fluid and snappy experience. Aside from, and if you guessed it, you already know what I'm going to say, when you have a bunch of apps open in the background, you will get that occasional app hiccup and slowdown. But other than that, in terms of the hardware and software for the Moto X Pure Edition, I think Motorola did a really good job with this one. Okay? So, that being said, you guys are probably wondering, in terms of hardware and software, who wins what? And in that regard, I would have to say that it is a tie. Overall, I've had a very pleasant experience with either of these devices. So in terms of the hardware and software, I'd have to call it a tie. Now, I know what you guys are saying, but how can it be tied? Because one is running stock Android and the other one is running a skin version of Android. That, again, is where I say it comes down to personal preference. Now, for me, you guys know I'm a big advocate of stock Android, but when I'm looking at stuff head to head, I tend to just strip it down to the bare bones and go piece for piece. And at least in that regard, I would call it a tie in the hardware and software category. Okay? All right, so moving on now, let's talk about the Wi-Fi in these guys. Now, across the board, aside from one key difference, they both have Wi-Fi 802.11 BGNN, but the one upside that the Moto X has over the Stylo 3 is that the Moto X Pure Edition supports Wi-Fi 802.11 BGNN and AC. So that means that it has support for your 2.4 gigahertz band and your 5 gigahertz band, whereas the Stylo 3 only has support for your 2.4 gigahertz band. But that being said, let me just give y'all a live Wi-Fi performance test so y'all can see for yourselves and y'all could be the judge. And this Wi-Fi performance test will also double as a speaker test as well. So let me just load this up here. And I believe they're both at max volume. Check this out. Max volume over here, max volume over there. Yep, so they're both at max volume. So now I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna play the music for a little bit. We're gonna scrub through the video so you can get a sense of how the Wi-Fi performs, and then we're gonna keep it moving. Enjoy, guys. So let's start with the Stylo 3. Okay. All right. Now for the Moto X Pure Edition, let me put that down and enjoy, guys. Alright, so real quick Wi-Fi test, real quick speaker test, and now, in my opinion, when it comes to the speakers, I have to say they both get loud, but I'm gonna have to give it hands down to the Moto X Pure Edition. It, in my opinion, got just that much more louder, but also had a nice amount of bass to it and real depth. Whereas the Stylo 3 just got loud and stayed clear, but it didn't really pack as much bass. It was just loud and clear. And I'm a big fan of bass, if you guys didn't notice. So in terms of the Wi-Fi performance, I'm gonna have to call it a tie. But in terms of the speaker performance, I'm gonna have to give it hands down to the Moto X Pure Edition. Front-facing speakers beat anything other than other front-facing speakers. So these front-facing speakers win hands down. Now, up next, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the overall LTE band support in these guys. And let's start with the Moto X Pure Edition because it's pretty much simple. This is a global unlocked phone. This phone has the band support for all the major carriers in the United States and all GSM carriers abroad. So this guy will work pretty much on any carrier and any MVNO. Again, if you want to go more in depth on the actual band supported, please check out my full review, which will be linked down below in the video description. Now, moving on to the Stylo 3 here. So this is fully GSM unlocked and fully globally unlocked. Moving on to the Stylo 3, this one is from Straight Talk and it is CDMA. So in particular, it works on Verizon and the Straight Talk network. Okay. Again, if you want to get more in depth on the band supported on either of these, please check out the links to my full reviews, which will be located down below in the video description. But that being said, when we talk about the LTE performance and the data performance, I have to say each of these devices work flawlessly without issue. So let's keep it moving. Now, so that if you didn't notice, that means it's a tie. Okay, I mean, sure, you can break it down and say that the Moto X Pure Edition wins because it has more band support. But at the end of the day, as long as they both perform good without issue, I guess I can call it a tie. But if you had to pick a winner, I'd give it to the Moto X Pure Edition. But it is what it is. Now, moving on, the next thing I want to talk about is the Bluetooth performance on these guys. Now, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Hands down, the W goes to the LG Stylo 3. Okay, I've had issues in the past with the Moto X Pure Edition's Bluetooth. In particular, the Moto X Pure Edition has Bluetooth 4.1 in it, and the Stylo 3 has Bluetooth 4.2. And I still occasionally have some Bluetooth issues with the Moto X Pure Edition. It's gotten better since I've gotten the Android 7.0 update, but I still occasionally have some issues. That being said, the LG Stylo 3 wins because this works flawlessly and I've had no issues in terms of the Bluetooth. So Bluetooth wise, I don't know whether I was saying GPS or Bluetooth, but Bluetooth wise, if I messed up. The LG Stylo 3 wins hands down, and the Moto X Pure Edition taking an L in terms of the Bluetooth. Now, moving on to the GPS, I have to say the GPS performance in each of these devices is really, really good, and I've had no issues using anything that had to use the GPS module in this guy, turn-by-turn navigations. Anything that required access to the GPS worked without issue on either of these devices. So in terms of GPS, I have to call it a tie. Now, moving on, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the call quality and speaker call quality of both of these devices. And in that regard, again, I'm going to have to give the slight edge to the Stylo 3. Okay? Talking about call quality and speaker call quality, everything was very loud, crisp, and clear on the Stylo 3, and it worked without issue. Whereas on the Moto X Pure Edition, everything worked really good, but I found that I just wanted it to get louder, whether it was with the earpiece or whether it was with the actual speaker on speaker calls. I just wanted it to get a touch louder. Maybe I'm getting old, maybe I'm going deaf, but it is what it is. So in terms of call quality and speaker call quality, I'm gonna have to give the W to the LG Stylo 3. Up next now, this is where I would talk about the cameras and the camera interfaces, but for the interest of speed, I'm gonna just give you guys my opinions on the cameras. If you want a more in-depth look at the camera interfaces, please be sure to check out again the links to my full reviews, which will be located down below in the video description. And if you want to see the video and camera samples, the video samples will be on a video samples playlist on YouTube. I have links to it down below in the video description. And the photo samples, follow me on Google Plus if you want to see the photo samples from either of these devices. I will also have a link to the photo samples down below in the video description. But talking about these cameras, overall, I'd have to say that both of these cameras shoot and record some really good video. But in my opinion, if I had to pick a winner, I'd have to give it in the camera department to the Moto X Pure Edition, hands down. The camera interface is much more simpler, and the cameras in general, in my opinion, and keep in mind this whole video is based on my opinion, just perform that much more better than the cameras on the LG Stylo 3. So in particular, again, it's 5 megapixel cameras across the board, and it's a 21 megapixel camera on the rear to a 13 megapixel camera on the rear on the Stylo 3. And let's be honest, don't think because the Moto X Pure Edition has higher megapixels that makes it the better camera. No. What really matters when you talk about the camera is the sensor and the software and hardware combination, and both of these cameras take really good videos and really good photos, but I'm giving the slight edge to the Moto X Pure Edition. So at least in the camera department, again, the Moto X Pure Edition takes the W. And I forgot to mute them notifications, so if you hear that, I'm sorry. Now, moving on, this is where I would talk about the gaming, and really, both of these guys performed extremely well when it comes to the gaming, whether it was using the Adreno 418 GPU on the Moto X Pure Edition, or whether it was using the Adreno 308 GPU on the LG Stylo 3. These devices, I'm messing up today, sorry y'all. These devices pretty much handled any game that I threw at them without issue. And just so y'all know, I'm not a heavy gamer. I'm not into all the graphically intensive games and getting fully immersed. I'm more of a casual gamer, and so I tested these guys with games like Fruit Ninja, Subway Surfer, Asphalt 8, and Moto Combat X. And I think my most intensive game was Moto Combat X, and both of these devices handled that without issue. So in terms of the gaming performance, I'd have to call it a tie. Moving on to the benchmarks, this one's going to be really easy. In terms of the benchmark performance, the Moto X Pure Edition took this one hands down. But, and you already know what I'm going to say, the benchmarks mean absolutely nothing. What really matters at the end of the day is the overall combination of hardware and software, which equals a smooth and fluid user experience, which I believe both these devices deliver in spades. Okay, but if we're talking about the raw performance numbers in my testing using the benchmarks that I like to use, the Moto X Pure Edition wins hands down. But I have to throw out in the multitasking benchmark that I use, Disco Mark, the Stylo 3 beat the Moto X Pure Edition like it was too easy. It was no contest. So at least in multitasking, the Stylo 3 does a little bit better. But again, if you want to see the actual numbers from the benchmarks, please check out the links to my full reviews, which will be down below in the video description. So in terms of raw benchmarks, the Moto X Pure Edition wins hands down. Next now, let's talk about the battery life and the overall charge times. And this one is a piece of cake. If you guys have watched any of my other videos or versus videos, you already get a sense of what I'm about to say. So let's go ahead and get it out the way. In terms of overall battery life, we gotta just pretend this one is not here. The battery life on the Moto X Pure Edition, at least in my opinion, with my testing and daily usage, is horrible. Horrible. Okay? I think overall, in usage standpoints, it's a struggle for me to get 4 hours of usage or 3 hours of screen on time if I get that. Okay? But where the Moto X Pure Edition redeems itself is with the turbocharger. Now it's degraded a little bit over time, but this device still charges up really quickly. I think from 0 to 100, it used to be able to do it in about an hour and 10 minutes. Now it's doing it in about an hour and a half. From 0 to from 10 to 100, it's doing it in about an hour and 20. From 20% to 100, it's doing it in about an hour and 10. So it's degraded a little bit, but it still charges extremely fast in my opinion. That's talking about the Moto X Pure Edition. Now, jumping over to the LG Stylo 3, this one takes the L hands down in overall charge times. In my particular testing and usage, this one took anywhere from 2.5 hours to 3.5 hours to reach a full charge. Keep in mind, your results may vary depending on when you put your smartphones on the charger. But where the LG Stylo 3 redeemed itself is with the usage and the overall screen on time. With my particular usage, and I'm a heavy user guys, I was easily able to get with the Stylo 3 anywhere between 8 and 12 hours of screen on time, and I was easily able to get through the day. And pretty much as long as I remember to throw this device on the charger before I went to bed, I'm pretty much good for the rest of the day. So if you're a heavy user like myself, you're going to make it through the day, no problem. If you're a light to moderate user, then you're probably looking at 1.5 to 2 days. So let's break it down and wrap it up. In terms of charge times, the Moto X Pure Edition wins. In terms of overall usage and screen on times, the LG Stylo 3 wins. Again, for a more in-depth look and the actual numbers behind the charge times and the screen on times, please check out my full reviews of both of these devices, which will be linked down below in the video description. And now we get to the end of the video. Man, I'm getting tongue-tied today. Sorry guys. But now I just want to talk about the price, give you guys my final thoughts, and give you a recommendation or two. Now, let's start off with the Moto X Pure Edition. The Moto X Pure Edition, brand new. You can pick this guy up for about, I think you can get it for about $380 brand new, or maybe a little bit over 400. This guy comes in a few different configurations. This one here, again, as I've said, is maybe I forgot to say it. This one here has 3 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of onboard storage with microSD card expansion and a 3000 milliamp hour battery. You do have a few other tiers. You have a 32 gig model, same RAM configuration, and you have a 64 gig model. And you also have different models with different materials. So you got a bamboo back, and you can get all crazy with your materials there, even though I think they don't support Moto Maker for this guy anymore. But it is what it is. I just had to let you guys know. So in terms of the price, you can pick this guy up here anywhere from about $230 used to about $460 brand new. Keep in mind, if you want this model brand new, then it's probably gonna run you like $260. All right. Whereas when we talk about pricing with the LG Stylo 3 here, this one right here, this one ran me after taxes. I picked this up straight from Straight Talk. After taxes, this one ran me about $184 and change. And again, this one is the 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage with microSD card expansion and a 3200 milliamp hour battery. Okay? And that battery is user removable and user replaceable. So you want to keep that in mind. But I got to throw out the disclaimer on this one. If you're a light to moderate user, then I could recommend you pick up the model you see here. If you're a heavy user and you got a bunch of apps, then I would recommend going with the LG Stylo 3 Plus. That one gives you a little bit more internal storage, but all the other internals stay the same. So in particular, you bump it up to 32 gigs, which is important because LG devices do not give you the ability to make your SD card internal storage. So if you got a bunch of apps and you're taking a lot of photos and videos, you're going to eat through the 16 gigs on this guy rather quickly. But if you're a casual user and you only use it to make phone calls, you watch the occasional Netflix video or use the occasional Google Maps navigation, you should be okay. But if you're a heavier user and you got more apps, again, you want to go with the LG Stylo 3 Plus. That one is going to run you anywhere from about $200 to $225, depending on where you get it from. So that being said, you guys are probably wondering which device I would recommend. And this is where I would say it comes down to what you want out of a device. If you want some really top-notch cameras, some nice front-facing speakers, and you like the stock Android experience, then I can recommend the Moto X Pure Edition. But if you want really good all-day battery life, okay, you want a removable battery, and you like LG software, so you get LG custom software, so you got the double tap to wake and the double tap to sleep, and you use the quick memo and the camera gestures, then I would probably recommend that you go with the LG Stylo 3. And also, if you're a big fan of phones with styluses, then I would probably recommend that you go with the Stylo 3. Okay? So it all comes down to what you guys want out of your device. But if you really want me to make a recommendation, and we're talking strictly about price, I only got this much money to spend, I'd probably say go with the LG Stylo 3 or the LG Stylo 3 Plus. You're gonna really enjoy your experience with the device, okay? And also, if you're looking for carriers for these devices, I can recommend either of the carriers that I've used on either of these devices. In particular, the carriers I use are Straight Talk and T-Mobile. And using these devices on Straight Talk and T-Mobile have been a joy, okay? So if you're looking for carriers, or if you're in the market for a smartphone and you don't know which carriers to go with, I can easily recommend Straight Talk or T-Mobile. Okay, you're gonna get some really nice coverage and data support and some really nice call quality overall. But again, if I had to pick a winner in terms of call quality on networks, I'd have to go with Straight Talk because they're running on Verizon's network, and I had no issues taking or making or receiving calls on the Straight Talk network, and everything was very loud, crisp, and clear. So if you take a lot more phone calls, things like that, you might want to look at Straight Talk or Verizon. But if you're very data heavy and you're okay with making good phone calls, not great phone calls, but good phone calls, then I would say go with T-Mobile. But that about does it for my versus/comparison video between the Moto X Pure Edition and the LG Stylo 3. So if you guys and gals enjoyed the video, please help your boy out and give it a thumbs up. That really does help me out. You don't know how much. If you want to see more raw, uncut content like this, please be sure to hit the subscribe button down below and click off the notification bell icon right next to it. And if this video has piqued your guys' interest and you're interested in picking up either of these devices as you see them here, please check out the video description. All links to where to pick up these devices as you see them here. The device itself, the cases, the screen protectors, the microSD cards, so on and so forth will be down below in the video description, as well as links to the video samples and the photo samples of each of these devices. So if this video has piqued your interest, please check out the video description. It's going to be like a one-stop shop down there, and you should be good to go. And that being said, if you guys and gals or anyone out there looking for some high quality, affordable devices and products at some really great prices, please share with them my channel, because I'm doing this for everyone because we all deserve the best. All right, everybody, I hope everyone has a great day, and I will catch you guys and gals in my next video. Peace. Oh, and this whole video was recorded using the 13 megapixel cameras on the LG G6 at 720p resolution at 30 frames a second, and all the audio for this video was recorded using the lavalier clip-on CQ microphone. So please let me know how the video looks, and please let me know how the audio sounds. All right, I'm going for real this time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace.